morning, everyone. My name is Simonetta. I'm the Chief Client Officer at Rathbones. How many of you know Rathbones? Well, actually, that's more than I thought. So we are a FTSE 250 wealth manager. And what we do is we look after people's investments, we advise them on their financial plans, and we like to think that we are here to help people invest well so that they can live well. I've been in the role for about a year. I've been in wealth management for about 5, and I have a career in financial services by and by.
Hi everyone, I'm Suzanne. I work at the BBC. I'm actually based up in Salford, which is our big northern base. And I've had a really varied career. I started as a journalist and I've gone into transformation and into operations. So you might be thinking, why am I here? Because I don't do marketing. But in actual fact, our audiences are everything. And you know, the BBC would be nothing without our audiences. It's the top thing in our values, and every single member of our staff is focused on how do we serve our audiences. And it's not just about getting big numbers, it's about looking at our underserved audiences as well. So, you know, that's something that, you know, every day we are thinking about in respect of everything that we do.
Brilliant. I'm Lucy Alligan, and I've been to a number of the CMO summits before, so people might know me, but our company is Bluprintx. We're a digital transformation agency. We work with the C-suite, looking at how to manage change across people, processes, data, technology, to make sure that your business is growing with the changing environment. So very much aligned to speaking with CMOs around the changes and how to navigate them. So it really ties into what we were talking about today around what growth actually means and what our customers mean through that growth transformation as well.
Good morning, everyone. I'm David Enwright. I'm the Marketing and Digital Director at the Post Office. How many of you in the room have used the Post Office? So not everybody, obviously you all probably have used the Post Office at least once in the year, but not all of you will probably know that we are also a growth business, hence why I'm here going to talk about, you know, the importance of the models around ROI and how you prove the return on investment and things like that. So I'm really excited to be here. I started my career not in marketing, I started in IT, working for HSBC over 25 years ago. So I've worked in IT, then customer experience, and then ended up in marketing because I love the customer and making sure that we're doing everything we possibly can to serve the customers. So that's why I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. I'll hand over to Sara.
I like the dramatic entrance. The M25 is a gift, isn't it? Hour and a half or 40 minutes. Very sorry. Very, very, very sorry. Everybody okay? Yeah. Welcome, and I'm delighted to finally be here to host the panel to discuss marketing and ROI and the role of marketing in growth. We had a chat previously, didn't we, about CMO and the phrase CMO and the implications of the M in CMO. And one of the first things we'd like to discuss today, and I'm not sure I like being up here, I might come down here. One of the first things we wanted to discuss was the difference between CMO and CCO. And do we think CMO has the implication of an output rather than putting the customer at the heart of everything? Lucy, I know that you work with a lot of CMOs on transformation. Do you want to give us your thoughts on this?
I think that very much we've been talking about customer centricity, customer 360 for many, many years. It's not new. It's not new to us. We know that's the outcome that we need. We're very much looking to get to that point where we can be outside in rather than inside out, and that's incredibly important. And I think we're really at that stage where we've got the data and the architecture, and actually we've proven the importance of retention and loyalty, and actually what marketing can achieve around longer term growth, not just that short term acquisition, to be able to start ensuring that marketing is very much focused on the customer and focused on, you know, that growth engine that they need to orchestrate across the business, and the shared KPIs that they had that they now need to have to achieve that longer term growth as well. That is so much more aligned to customer and also delivery teams, as well as the sales teams from a B2B perspective. I just think that their role has become so much broader. Marketing is so much broader than it used to be historically.
Yeah, I agree with that. David, what about you in terms of the customer? And obviously you have a complicated relationship with customers because you have the customer and the consumer. How does that work in the post office in terms of focus on the customer versus marketing per se?
That's a good question, Sara. So we've always got a lens on the customer. And obviously we serve the whole of the UK society. So we have audience strategies focused on the most vulnerable in society to young students who are starting out in their university and so on. So we have to make sure that we've got a real understanding of what our customers are doing and how we remain relevant to those customer groups. But we're also conscious we can't serve everyone in exactly the same way. So it's that.
Talk segmentation.
We get to talk segmentation. But it's really important that I think marketing has always been framed as being that voice of the customer. But actually what's in today's world is actually the voice of growth through the customer. And how do you drive growth? How do you drive customer value that effectively then turns into business value? And I think that's relevant to all businesses.
Okay. Talking value, Simonetta, and lifetime value. One of the things that I've just found interesting is we've talked about audiences, customers, segments. How do you operate within Rathbones?
So our industry is really fascinating because it's a practitioner-led. And so our people are really close to the clients, and we like to call them clients.
Are they really?
Exactly. So there is this perception that client-facing means client-centric, and actually that's not always the case. Client-facing, you know your specific group of customers. You don't know every group of customers. You make assumptions because you're in the comfort of a relationship, but you don't see what you don't see. And so one of the challenges that we are having to embrace is how do we think about customer insights in a much broader way, right? Rather than the anecdotal feedback, right? So we as I think as an industry are on that journey. And in fact, in my industry, you see more and more chief client officer roles being created exactly to do that, to professionalize the insights of proposition development and then the marketing activity. And I think, as David said, the role is about growth through insights, proposition and marketing activity. And I've always loved the thinking around CMO and a CCO. I think, first of all, a role is what you make of it, right? And if you're a CMO, you can think as broadly as you want around client experience and brand experience, and you can empower yourself to have a bigger remit, right, despite your title. But I really think that today, especially in service industries, the brand is the experience, is the brand. And if all we do as CMOs is put out advertising, right, to drive a number, I think we've really missed the point and the opportunity of being true to customer centricity.
Just to follow up on that, you said that the role is what you make of it. I mean, I've worked in Barclays, I've worked in Cable and Wireless, I've worked in lots of really big organisations, loads of really big organisations. And I have found sometimes, and also have got lovely clients, I found sometimes just by calling something marketing, people make assumptions. Oh, right, okay, so marketing, they do that. I mean, the whole crayons do as a brochure lot used to drive me mental. And there's an assumption, or there has been an assumption historically, that it's not value-led. How does that work in the BBC? Because that's quite a different way of doing things, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, as I said in my intro, it is all about the audience.
Yes.
I mean, without our audience, we're nothing. We're different in respects to commercial companies where it's about the volume, perhaps, of the audience. And I've worked at another company where We had, when there was the ban on junk food advertising, you know, that really affected, you know, how much money the company had, and we made, you know, changes almost immediately to reduce our budgets. People, you know, left, we reduced things. But at the BBC, it sometimes it's about numbers, you know, and you know, you'll probably be watching Celebrity Traitors. I actually have never seen an episode of Traitors, but I must be about the only person.
No, I'm with you.
Oh, right, good. There was a big viral moment last night, I think. So it was, yes, by a national treasure. So, you know, so that's about numbers, and we celebrate that, and that's amazing. But it's also for us about because we're a public service broadcaster, it's about ensuring that we are reaching everybody and providing a service for everybody. So sometimes it's not about that. So a lot of our marketing, as it is, we've just done a campaign. This is our BBC, because it's all of our BBCs, and it should be for everybody. So that's why some of the things we do, very few people watch, but we keep doing it because nobody else is doing it. So in Scotland, it's written within our charter, we do Gaelic news. And if you look at the whole country, very few people are watching Gaelic news. So if you were looking at in a business sense, you'd go, well, that's a lot of money for very little return in terms of numbers. But in actual fact, it's serving an audience that they're not getting something from anywhere else. So that's I think why we are different. We're looking at value in different ways, I suppose, rather than just scale and growth all the time. It's about who are we reaching and who are we supporting. And much like David said, you know, about the vulnerable, about, you know, all of those sorts of groups. Are we providing a service for them? And that's something we saw during COVID, where we had people phoning our local newsrooms going, which shop is open? You know, and we were a lifeline service then. We were very popular during COVID. People love the BBC during COVID, which we can't always now say that people love the BBC. 20 years ago, 10 years ago, love the BBC. Yeah. But now you just need to look every day on X or the Daily Mail, and you know, there's criticism of us. Did I? The Daily Mail.
I've got a client of mine, they're an Irish retailer, and during COVID, they won big time, because they're all about heritage and community. And as soon as the pandemic passed, their market share has just fallen through the floor, because people now want a different thing. And I suppose it's about understanding what your customers actually want. And it's interesting hearing you talk about serving your customers. I mean, a lot of organisations fall into the walking wallet syndrome, don't they? Where it's just like, oh, customers are over there, we'll build something and they'll buy it. But actually, unless, in my experience, unless you genuinely engage with your customers and understand what problems you're solving for them, be that entertainment, or be that a parcel, or be that their money, or, you know, or the digital transport, whatever it may be, unless you are actually solving that problem, eventually you lose as an organisation.
Because of the trust. And I think that's the element that we're all talking about, is it's a trust. And that's the commodity across marketing and customer roles, ensuring that your brand promise is delivered in the brand experience. And having that orchestration, that throughway, and everyone being around the same KPIs is really critical in ensuring that the trust is delivered.
Okay, well, this brings me on to a nice segue. Thank you very much.
Sara.
Let's talk about trust in the form of AI and bias and don't sigh. It's a challenge, isn't it? It's a challenge for all of us. So, who should we go to first? Let's go to Simonetta. Let's talk about how your organisation, or how you personally as a leader, how are you embracing, or otherwise, AI as a form of engagement with your clients?
So I would preface that financial services companies are probably coming to the AI game a bit late. So I'm part of a broader community of marketers, and I was kind of gobsmacked in February to realize how much other companies were already using AI, particularly in the delivery of marketing collateral, etc. And I think as a business, we're literally tomorrow going to be unlocking Copilot Premium for all of our colleagues. So that's not necessarily forward adoption. Right now, we're using AI to support our practitioners in delivering a better client experience, but we're not using AI facing into the client. In my team, we're using AI, experimenting with AI. We've actually built our segmentation into a series of bots, and we can actually interact with our bots. They are our customer personas. We've loaded all of the insights we have about them, and we talk to them and we ask them questions, right? What are you worried about? Are you interested in this? What do you think about this piece of content? So that's one form. The other one, we actually have some consumer understanding principles coming from the consumer duty. We have tone of voice principles. We have FinProm rules, etc. So there's a lot of rules that need to come together into a piece of content and collateral that's client facing. So we run it by our Rathbots, and we tell the Rathbots whether we are being compliant, we are being aligned with our tone of voice, and whether we are doing a good job at explaining things in a simple way. So we're experimenting internally, but we're not yet in a place where we're actually exposing our clients. Because ultimately, in our industry, it's a human buying the support of another human, and that is the differentiator. And if people wanted the support of a machine, they can do it with a DIY investment platform. So we want to supercharge our humans, right, through AI, but ultimately stay true to the fact that we are selling a human service.
For me, there's something we have a duty of care to a certain degree as the voice of the customer or the people with the relationship with the customer. We have a duty of care to make sure that the people that we're interacting with are being interacted with ethically, morally, that we're not, I don't mean protecting them from themselves, that's not our job necessarily, but we're making sure that they're not being led down a path which isn't necessarily the right path for them. Is anybody on the panel doing anything with sentient AI or ensuring that the more emotional side of AI is being addressed, I suppose?
So we are actually working with clients to ensure that sentient analysis is coming into that customer 360 view. But I think it's about transparency, which then again comes back to trust, not to repeat myself, but it's ensuring that people understand how you're using their data, why you're using your data. And also there's guardrails internally around how to interpret that data and how to use it and when to use it. Just because we can see how someone feels in that moment automatically, does that mean that we need to react to it straight away?
Yes.
And I think that's a really important part of marketing, ensuring that there's guardrails around how you're using AI, but also how you're interpreting it and the language that comes through to make it more human, very much so. In fact, there's other ways that we're using AI with clients around compliance and speeding up just processes that just need that human nuance, but can be speeded up and need that interpretation as well. Is that me?
I was just going to build on that. I think it's not always. I always think that the problem is not always data; it's mindset.
Yes.
And it's about application. To your point, and
100%.
remembering that humans are always there to give that extra perception and lens on things, which data nor AI could probably do.
Yes.
So we always have to keep that as a core thought, I think.
I mean, originally when AI was first coming to the fore, there was this positioning of, well, AI can't think. Well, it can, and it's how it thinks that becomes part of our responsibility. I wonder in the future when AI will kind of move from the CTO to the CMO or the CCO. I wonder what that journey will be like. How's it been used in the BBC?
I think there's excitement. I think there's trepidation, trust. I mean, the BBC, we're all about trust, and you'll have seen when we've had various things and incidents, perhaps with presenters, or perhaps where things haven't been portrayed as they should have been portrayed through error or whatever, thankfully very rare, although they do get a lot of coverage, that it dents our trust.
Yes.
And that's what we've got, and that's what we want to stand for. We want to stand for impartiality, you know, because that sets us apart, and you know, that's what people value us for. But so that's where our thoughts around AI are the trust element. And I think a lot of companies are having these dilemmas going, how much should we use it? What should we use it for? And that there are dilemmas as well. So yes, it's our journalism, it's our content making, it's the people that do all of this stuff, which is absolute paramount. But can we use AI to take away perhaps some of the more mundane tasks to allow us to be more creative? So I was saying to Lucy just before, we've just piloting a service where we're taking our own journalism. So it's a pilot with 5 Premier League clubs. That's sports, very popular with our audience. So if you want to find anything out about Newcastle United, we're piloting, taking our own journalism and using AI to create a summary of it. So we know that the source material is our own.
Great.
And that's brilliant because we've got the trust in there. But we've also seen through studies when we've looked at various topics, we've seen the BBC quoted, and when we've gone back to where we've seen the original of the BBC, it's wrong. It's completely wrong. So we're not there yet. And I think, you know, if something happens and it's, oh, well, that's AI and it's wrong, then where does that leave us?
Yeah.
And there's so much out there. You know, if you just look at your Facebook feed, excuse me, how much of that is generated by AI and it's actually just rubbish? You know, and it just leaves you with loads of rubbish content. We want to make great content, but how do we use the AI in the best way? There's also, if you've got children and and you use the bite-sized content, there's a great bite-sized bot. So there are, across the BBC, great applications of AI, but I think it's how does it support us and aid us rather than completely taking over jobs and creating content, because one of our values is trust, and without that, you know, again, without that, we don't have our audiences. And
I love that example, like, excuse my bad language, but AI is basically shit in, shit out, isn't it? And so how do we ensure that what's going in isn't impacting in a negative way what comes out?
I think that's really, really important. We were actually speaking. We were actually speaking to one of the speakers on the CDO side as well about how much do you look back at data and potentially assess if you need to change it to be able to get the right outcome. If we think about bias, do we need to think about the bias inherent in a company? For example, we were talking about education and bias around white males potentially. Should that be eradicated from our data to be able to make sure that the AI models are therefore assessing a more modern world and modern culture and the brand values that a company actually wants to be showing in this day and age? And I think, you know, that's a really important discussion to be having.
Has anybody else experienced the recent LinkedIn bias? Huge. And so there's a bit of a furore at the minute about LinkedIn and how basically if you're a white man, well done. If you're anything other than a white straight man, then probably not so good. And there was a huge campaign by various people sort of behind, in the background. And what it kind of finally came to the conclusion of was the bias, and there is a bias, is reflecting societal bias. And so actually, how do you deal with societal bias actually driving? And so you could say, well, the trust is there because the bias exists. But then what's the responsibility of organisations to go, well, hang on a minute, that's actually not right. So how do we make sure that the AI and the algorithms and all of the stuff that we're employing is actually representing a positive future, not a negative past?
We're creatures of habit, aren't we? AI, the rise of AI is following exactly the same path as the rise of search.
Right.
And if you think, you know, in the early
Right.
days of
Yeah.
search, and you know, anybody who's digital market, you know, background in digital marketing, where you're trying to beat the algorithm, do you know what I mean? And by
Yes.
any tactic, you know, if you think, you know, like people were just like literally putting so many links in their web pages so that it could get higher up a search engine. So we're the ones driving that, and we're then questioning our own ethics as we
Yes.
build through. AI is just much more rapid, but it will
Yeah.
follow exactly the same path as what happened with search and what happened with social media.
Can I give an example of that bias, right? We have new values, 4 new values. We aim high, we get it done, we show we care, and we do the right thing. And my team, we're having a team day on Monday. My team actually threw the values into the AI and basically said, come up with personas for these values. And then we aim high and get it done. We're 2 men. And we show we care and we do the right thing. We're 2 women. And we sat down with the HR team, like the people team, and they go like, there's a bit of a gender bias here. So yeah.
Has anybody put into ChatGPT, tell me what you think I look like? Try it. I was a man with a beard. The beard is coming, you know, hormones and all of that. Yeah, I was a man. Yeah, give it a go and see what it comes up with. It is horrifying and interesting at the same time. We're supposed to talk about ROI, so we should probably do a bit to chat about ROI. What I wanted to pose to the panel was, in the paradigm, in the context that we're currently at, what do you think we should be measuring? What should be on the executive dashboard? And how do we ensure that causality of our measures is included so that we get I talk about the golden thread of accountability. So if your organisation has got some objectives at the top, how do you make sure that the person at the bottom, the person at the other end, the outputs, the day-to-day activities that they're doing are actually meeting the goals of the organisation? So who am I going to ask? I'm going to ask Simonetta.
So I'm really, really passionate about ROI and marketing because...
Are you really?
Yes, I am, because I don't want to be in the pretty picture department, right? Marketing is an activity that is discretionary, and when the focus is on the activity, then the only outcome is the P&L has got pressure. Please, can you do more activity for less, or less activity because the activity is not really important and we can't see the value that it generates. And whenever I've been in those positions and in those companies, right, then it was always you should actually be a CFO because you develop the art of cutting budget and cutting people, right? I mean, seriously. So when I joined Rathbones, I set out 3 key missions for my team. The first one is growth, organic growth. How can we be a contributor to organic growth and measure our contribution? We've given ourselves a target in flows, and we've actually delivered on this target. The second thing was the brand, because you can have short-term growth, but if your brand isn't strong enough, you're not having this growth and you're not scaling. And so we have brand metrics that cover the whole life cycle, the customer life cycle. And then the third was actually the people and the culture, because we are a practitioner, we're a business where the brand is delivered by our practitioners inside out, and therefore if our people don't believe in our purpose and in our values, then they can't really demonstrate that outwardly. If they don't buy into the brand, when they do a pitch pack, they're going to change the visual identity to what they think is right. So these were...
We'll see that as well, haven't we? I just want to put this nice new logo on them.
Absolutely,
Brilliant.
yes.
Thank you.
I was just going to add that ROI is one metric, isn't it? And
Yes.
it's a double-edged
Yes.
sword, as I would say, to your point, Simonetta. It's either used by people to cut things or used by people to grow things, you know. But,
Or to justify their
or to
arguments.
justify their arguments.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily about that one metric, it's about the story that's aligned to the outcomes of the business.
Golden.
So if you are, you know, if you're in the mindset of a CEO, or you're in the mindset of a CFO, or you're in the mindset of a CRO, you've got different lenses that you're looking at. If your objective is, I need to grow top line revenue as a CRO, but the CFO is about the bottom line, it's about understanding what's important, what are those metrics that are really important to the business, and then how does marketing and marketing as a lever affect all of those things, and telling the story, whether it goes back to your point, Lizzie, about driving brand strength through trust and relevance, which leads to incremental transactions and showing incrementality.
Yes.
You know, that what would happen if you are in market and then when you're not in market.
Yeah.
And we've got loads of data that can prove that when we're not marketing, we're not driving business through, you know, we're not driving transactions.
Does anybody on the panel do econometric modelling? So you've got, so you understand that causality? Because I found with some of the clients that I did this with Orange. Do you remember Orange? Yeah, years and years ago. That if you could get the model, rather than talk about a funnel or a purchase ladder or any of that stuff, and none of that exists anymore, does it? It's like a loop, the loop of decision making. If you can understand that decision making process in an empirical way and build the model around it, then you've got a really lovely dashboard to go to the rest of the exec with. But there aren't many organisations who actually invest in that because they see it as so far back in terms of the process. Why would you? Does the post office do it?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
How did you persuade
And we
them?
do incrementality testing. You know, so where we would say we've done it quite recently. We were targeting. We were trying to. Our hypothesis was if we raise awareness of a banking proposition and flood a market, that should effectively result in increased transactions, more people visiting our branches to deposit or withdraw cash. So we create the hypothesis, we create a test group, we track what we know what would have happened if we weren't in market, and then it only takes us about 8 weeks to 10 weeks because we're very transactional orientated. So typically we would see 80% of our transactions within 2 months of being in market. So it's quite quick to prove that actually this is what happened as a result of this.
Your sales cycle is quite quick, whereas I imagine your sales cycle is quite long, right?
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? How do you, when you're going to the monthly board or the monthly exec team with your dashboard, how are you showing shifts, positive or negative?
So while the sales cycle is long, it's actually a marketing into sales process for us, right? So we're not direct to consumer transactional. And therefore, what my team has been able to do is has been able to demonstrate that through the website we can capture leads and we can then take them to the various stages of the sales cycle. And we know that that lead is a marketing lead. It comes through the website or it comes through paid, etc. And so we're actually the first team in the company that has a proper on Salesforce. We have a proper pipeline and we measure our pipeline and we've given ourselves a target. We've delivered on our target. So that's the story that I've been telling the board. And now we're trying to mature the rest of the organization to adopt a similar rigorous sales pipeline process. So.
Yeah, because I think actually if you have shared accountability, shared objectives and a shared dashboard, then the discussion becomes a lot easier, doesn't it? Certainly that's from the positions I've held. I imagine at BBC, we've got about 5 minutes, I imagine at the BBC what you're measuring is quite different, isn't it?
Yes. Well, it is. It's. I mean, we are measuring numbers, and we've got processes to do that through Barb and Radar. We've also got the audience appreciation index. So it may not have the highest numbers of people watching it, but it's about the warmth, the resonance. How much do people love this programme? Yes. So we've got things like that. So we measure things in lots of different ways. We've recently just done a survey. We should be getting the results, I was told last night, today, but I haven't got them yet, where we sent out a survey across the country for people to give their views on the BBC. And I think we've got 1 million people have responded what they'd like to see from the BBC. We also do virtual audience panels. So if you're a programme maker and you want to find out somebody's opinion on a topic, you get a cross-section of a population, and we could just do women, we could do people in Hull. It's all a variety of things, and you ask them a series of questions, and that's really stark when you get back, should I pay for my licence fee? And people are going, no. It's like, but you're in a, you know that you're being asked this by the BBC. So it's lots of different ways we can get immediate response on things. How, you know, in a lifestyle programme, we know that that item on scamming has done really well. Yes. Or we know that when that presenter comes on, people are engaged. So there's an awful lot of data. We've got a huge audience team who can break it down into, well, we know that 16 to 35-year-olds are watching this. We know that the C2DE audience, this news story, that really resonated with them. So we are breaking things down to a granular level as well. So there is a lot of data that's driving a lot of this thing, but driving everything that we do, all the decisions that we make, but it's not all just about the, you know, as I said at the beginning, the huge volume of the eyeballs on the screen or the people logging on. It's also about what we're giving people, and the younger audiences, the audiences across the whole of the UK, to make sure they're represented and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah. And do you have a proven model that shows how the things that you are measuring or researching add up to the ultimate goal, be that trust, be that engagement? Do you have that model?
I think we are there. We use our audiences team use a model called the clock face, and it's basically overlaying a lot of demographic data and overlaying lots of data so that we know that if you're live in this area, in this socio-economic group, you're more likely to like this sort of content. And we can apply that to, you know, so if we know that actually we've not got enough young people watching, then we can go, okay, well, we're going to do this news story because we know it will attract this group of people. So you may have seen the news change quite a bit and stories on there going, well, why? I'm not interested in that. And that's because they've used the data to go, well, we want that audience and we want to get them in. Because it's all about getting them in.
Even accents.
Yeah.
I've really noticed that accents change.
Yeah, because people look at it and they want to see themselves reflected. And you know, way back in the day when they were in their dinner jackets and ball dresses presenting the news and it was all received pronunciation, somebody from Birmingham or I was at an event with our News at One presenter, Nina Warhurst, last night, grew up in Salford, and she said, and when she was growing up, she could see where the BBC is currently in Salford. I'll never be on the telly, and now look at her. She's presenting News at One, and we're growing our audiences in the north because we're based in the north, and because people are reflecting the stories. And it's also the type of stories and how we cover them. If you look at Brexit, you know, if you just covered Brexit from London, you have a different view to if you're in Yorkshire. You know, so did Brexit come as a surprise? Probably yes, it did. And that was a big catalyst actually for a lot of the changes we have made, because we've got to be more representative of our audience.
Great, thank you. We're just about out of time, but I feel like I should offer up the panel to you to see if you've got any questions. Yes.
Oh, and I've got two, if that's all right. One's for Simonetta. It would be great just to hear a little bit more about the concept of the customer or the client segments that you've built out in AI and that process that you've been through. So that sounds fascinating. And then also for everybody on the panel. Well, firstly, sorry, I'm Mel from Post Office, part of David's fan club. Hello. Hello. And the second one is, how are you within your organisations upskilling teams and colleagues when it comes to AI and sort of democratising it for the wider business?
Shall I start?
Yeah.
I think our teams are skilling us.
Yes.
Right, so you got younger people on the team, curious people on the team, and they are given the tool and they play with it and they come up. The Rathbot was not something I instructed top down, right? And then,
do you give them time to play with the tool?
do you know what? I don't think it hasn't come up as an ask, I need time to play with the tool. The tool was available first in their private lives. So they started experimenting with AI in their private lives before we gave them corporate tools, right? Like, did you realize you could do this? And actually through that, we were able to make the case to say we have to pilot this with an enterprise solution because this is what you could be doing with it. So it's actually the innovation is being completely bottom up and not top down at all. And then when we realized the problem with insights, you've got different, and segmentation, you've got different lenses. You've got the attitudinal lens, you've got the behavioral lens, you've got the life stage lens, and it can be really hard to bring these together. But that's what the AI does best, right? It just kind of puts it all in the cauldron and uses it much faster, more efficiently. And so we used an agency to do that because we didn't have the tools in-house. But I'm now challenging my team to say, could we not have done it ourselves through AI in-house? Yes. So that's going to be our next journey.
I was the customer insight director at Barclays for a while, and the blending of the attitudinal and behavioural data and attributing it to our database I think we got to something like 70%, which was groundbreaking at the time. But now, if you think about what you could do with AI, it just blows your mind, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And there's a question to the rest of the panel in terms of
just about how you're working with your teams and upscaling, but that was very helpful, thank you.
We're encouraging experimentation, so within certain guidelines, so we set the guidelines of how to, what not to do essentially. Yeah. But it's a lot of experimentation. We've got, leads on it who we do a lot of training and webinars and all of that kind of thing. But we've just started, we've got our first cohort, of which I am part, although I did miss the first one because I was on holiday. Apprenticeships, we're doing a lot of staff AI apprenticeships, which have been really popular. And so we'll see how that goes. But they've got the second one starting in November because they are so popular. So I think that's a really good route to do stuff. And that's covering a lot of the, different levels, but the one I'm doing is around ethics, sustainability, and the more wider application of it, and how do you apply it, and the change model around that.
Thank you. Lisa, it's something right up your street.
It is right up my street because I work for a digital transformation agency, but I also suffer from cobbler's shoes in the fact that internally we don't necessarily have the technology, but we have the minds that we can access to be able to. We don't have the investment from a marketing perspective to be able to have every tool. So what we do is we build custom GPTs, etc., and then we share and people test and we evolve that. So there's a lot of knowledge that we can draw from internally, and obviously a couple of shoes, but also because of what I do about researching AI tools to help our clients, I'm constantly jealous and speak to our internal people about how we can replicate that ourselves as well. I was also an early adopter of a tool called Brightsonic, and was part of their board about refining that around how marketers need to interact with AI. And that's been fascinating, looking at where they're going, Brightsonic, Social Sonic, just how we can scale content with the right personas, for the right audiences, in the right tone of voice, for not only individuals but companies as well. So it's been trial and error internally, externally.
There's no model, is there? There's no framework.
No. But out of that is becoming things that actually feed into what we can offer our clients as well, which is brilliant.
Thank you. So David, you're going to have the last word.
I just say go for it. It's people are using AI in their daily lives, and it would be wrong for any of us to think that they're not using AI in work. And I know sort of our team use AI to write briefs, strategies, creative output. They're testing. As an organisation, we're starting training people on things like Copilot, and so they can effectively respond faster to emails, rather than it'll craft it for you. So you've got, trying to improve that productivity is really important. But it's just evolving, and I think it's just organic. It's an organic adoption. So
Thank you. You've been an excellent panel, don't you think?